United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public Meetings Act statement, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in compliance with NJSA 10:4, the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this duly and regularly scheduled meeting of the Jackson Township Planning Board has been published and posted in all appropriate locations.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
For Monday, January 11th, 2022, the Jackson Township Planning Board meeting, Mr. Dolan,
Present.
Dr. Campbell. Here. Mr. Riker,
Here.
Mr. Bernstein,
Here.
Mr. Herman,
Here.
Mr. Candarosi,
Here.
Mr. Wall,
Here.
Mr. Fleming,
Here.
Mr. Riccardi,
Here.
Mr. Herring,
Here.
Mr. Hudak.
Here. Thank you. With that said, can I have a motion to retire to our executive session? We have our quick discussion on the appointment of
Professionals and stuff.
professionals. Yes. you're,
So, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So whereas the Planning Board of the Township of Jackson is subject to certain requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, and whereas the Open Public Meetings Act 10:4-12 provides that an executive session not open to the public may be held for certain specified purposes when authorized by resolution, and whereas it is necessary for the Planning Board of the Township of Jackson to discuss in a session not open to the public certain matters relating to personnel matters and contract negotiations, now therefore be it resolved by the Jackson Township Planning Board to enter into an executive session. Action may be taken.
Thank you. May I have a
Second.
thank you. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Back in session. First course of business is chairman for 2022. Anyone would care to make a motion?
I nominate
Nominate.
Mr. Hudak.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? No? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dolan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi,
Who was nominated? Oh, yes.
Mr. Herring,
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak.
Yes. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I get a motion for vice chair? And motion for Mr. Herring?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dolan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yeah.
Mr. Riccardi,
Yes.
Mr. Herring,
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak.
Yes. Okay. Thank you all. Next on up, we're going to appoint our professionals. The first one would be the planning board attorney. Anyone care to make a motion? Make a motion. Mr. Herring?
Second.
Any other motions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dolan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yeah.
Mr. Riccardi,
Yes.
Mr. Herring,
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak.
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations, sir.
Welcome back.
Come on up and have a seat here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I appreciate the honor. But I would also I have to be a lawyer, but I would be remiss. I want to thank individually and collectively this board for all the condolence notes and calls I got related to my father, who happened to have served different pieces of Jackson Township as well for his passing. So thank the public and the members of the board for that as well. I'd be remiss not to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is planning board engineer. Anyone care to make a motion?
I move to offer the position to Wallen Little and Associates, please.
Second. Any other nominations? No? Roll call.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yes.
Mr. Hudak?
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Flea.
It's a quick man, 26 years in the county.
Okay. Next up, we have planning board. Planner. Second. And we have no others. So with that, roll call, please.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak?
Yes. Congratulations. And next up, planning board traffic engineer.
Make the motion to appoint Remington.
Second. And no others, so roll call, please.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak?
Yes. Now, publications. Can you read off the publications, please?
Yes, it would be the Asbury Park Press, the Tri-Town News, and the Jackson Times.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi?
Yes.
Mr. Herring?
Yeah.
Mr. Hudak?
Yes. Okay.
And the recording secretary.
Both secretaries, okay. Thank you. May I have a motion for the board recording secretary? The next month or so?
Yeah.
The next month or so.
I'll ride it out till January 24th.
Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now,
Recording secretary.
that's the recording secretary. Now, the board secretary.
Would be Laura Morrison.
Oh, she's not here.
But
We cannot.
Yes.
So,
I'd like to nominate Laura
Morrison.
Morrison.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up is the, okay, so those are set up, we're all set with all of our appointments. Next up-
Publications are done?
Yes, sir. Next up is the payment for voucher recording secretary for this evening, January 10th, 2022. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, you all should have received copies of the minutes from the December 6th regular meeting. Everybody okay with those? Any changes, comments regarding them? No? Can I get a motion for approval? Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
After it came from December 20th minutes were not issued yet. This was December 6th. So the 20th have not been issued yet. Okay, engineering and planning matters. Gentlemen, do you have any? Thank you. There are no resolutions for this evening, so we're going to jump right into our first application, which is block 2603-13 West Commodore Business Park. It is a time extension, correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An application with a little bit of history. It's the West Commodore Business Park, an approval dating back to '08. It was granted an extension, and they've used all the extensions that are afforded under municipal land use law, which really relates to the protection of changes in zoning and and the design standards. There's been no changes in zoning, so although they don't have any extensions left, there's nothing really to extend. My only comment would be that there was a modification in the stormwater regulations that I think, if the board should grant the extension, that it should be conditioned upon compliance with the current rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We can confirm that the zoning has not changed since the application was approved. Remind the board that the applicant's required for a time extension to prove to the reasonable satisfaction of the board that they were barred directly or indirectly from obtaining all necessary outside agency approvals. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Happy New Year. Welcome back. As the board, as your professionals indicated, we had previously received the 3 extensions. The statute does give you the board some flexibility to go beyond those extensions. The last extension we had received was in 2019, which would have brought us through June 30th of 2020. As everyone's aware, that between that period of time and now, I don't want to say the word, but it is what it is, and nothing was really able to get done on this project. That being said, the applicant is just seeking now the extension through June 30th of 2022, which really gives him another 6-7 months. And he's finishing up. He's talking to some lenders. This is one of the conditions that lenders are seeking. Even though I've explained to everybody, because no zoning change has occurred, he could still build this. They still would like to see some kind of a confirmation. So we're just looking really for confirmation that as no zone hasn't changed, none of the plans have changed, we would agree to the new regulations of the stormwater. We'd have no objection to that. And really just get this extension through the June 30th date, so we can get
Do
building.
you feel as though the June 30th extension is adequate? I mean, that's only
6 months, right? So the project otherwise is ready to go. Obviously, we will have to meet with the other information to come to compliance with the stormwater, but they could start the project. They'd be able to get in once the shovel's really in the ground and they get a building permit from the township. That then has another date of running from how the length of time for that building permit. So that's the only reason why we're just seeking to go through June 30th date of 2022.
any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 14 years.
Come back. I promise you. And if they come back for another extension, we'll do it with a different attorney.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I ask that question somewhat differently? But for the change in stormwater regulations, this applicant has satisfied all outside agency approvals?
He's talking with the Jackson MUA. They had some requests that we're trying to comply with from the original approval. My understanding, the way it was proposed, they wanted to see something change, which we are working with them to accommodate their request. Nothing to do with something that we're seeking.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Before round, I agree with you, you were five,
Right. So understood. In 2000, it was a previous owner. Give me 1 second to get to my notes. There was an ownership change. I think the old owner, I believe, got the first extension. And then the new owner came in. At that point, the facility, I believe, was about half vacant. The new owner came in, leased it all up, got the property to where it should be, and then started to come in to renovate and to go for the phase. This was the second phase in the project.
Okay. Yes.
You could, but the attorney just made the affirmation that this would be the last extension. So what I was just indicating to the chairman, I'll now put on the record, What that means with the ascension of the applicant is that should they not put a stick in the ground, so to speak, they would have to make a new application.
Should a zone, we would not be afforded the protections of the approval.
But you would be, that's right. So if there are changes.
If there are
beyond-
changes, yes.
Beyond that.
Correct. If in 7 months from now, or 8 months, if on July 1st, 2022, Jackson changes the zone of this property, we would have to come back before the board for a brand new approval.
Are you okay with that? All right, is there anyone from the public who cares to comment on this application? No?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any final words, any final questions? No? Mr. Pepper, anything?
We submit.
No? All right. I'll make a motion. Roll call.
Mr. Dolan,
With the stipulation that it's the last, yes.
Dr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riker,
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Riccardi,
Yes.
Mr. Herring,
Yes.
Mr. Hudak.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Congratulations. Anyone have anything to add to this evening's? Meeting? Trying to get well tonight. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done, everyone. Thank you.
Any opposed? Any opposed?